should we add some behavior? Okay, so Trailblazer has this pipeline model. The mental image of an operation is a pipeline, which means do something else, do something else, and this is just a raw pipeline. But Trailblazer also has this. Now I'm going to use the beautiful. I don't want to move this desk because something's going to change. Yeah, so the normal workflow when you're creating a comment would be something like instantiate the model, assign the current user to that model. Here we're talking about a comment instance. Then validate the input from like the actual comment input. And if the input is correct, you can see I'm already using BPMN, BPMN notation here. Error with some string is BPMN. If the input is correct, save that. And if save worked, then I don't know, send an email to the moderator. And if that doesn't work, if the validation is wrong, what are we going to do? Report an error to the system. This is an unnecessary step I just add because we can. And then failed. Yeah. So this is kind of this is a standard workflow you have with CRUD logic or with creating stuff in general or updating or whatever. And so you can see there's kind of a linear flow: instantiate, assign, validate, save, send email. But there's also some kind of deviation. Only save if the input was correct, and only send the email if the input was correct. So Trailblazer allows, or the operation allows to model those kind of flows with a mental model we call railway. And a railway is basically a pipeline and another pipeline, and we process one pipeline until something goes wrong, and then we jump to the other pipeline. It's very simple, and you can see the once you see the DSL, it's probably clear. So, anyway, we want to do stuff, and then we want to do other stuff, and then we want to do other stuff. So that is what you do with stack. So you say step. What is it? Instantiate model. And then we want to do step. Assign current user. And then we want to say step validate. I think these steps are enough for now. So now Trailblazer knows your pipeline. Yeah? If you run your test or your code, it'll break. Yeah! Now it breaks with undefined method instantiate model for comment create. So we need to implement those steps, of course, and that happens with methods. So I say instantiate model. Don't forget the asterisks in this thing because there will be options, but I'm going to arguments. I'm going to talk about them in a second. Oh, you already finished your code? Yeah. So 3 empty methods, which is pretty exciting. And if I execute it, it still works. But if you say puts instantiate puts assign current user and validate, there will be of course, kind of one. So it only runs instantiate model, and for some strange reason, assign current user and validate is not called. What happened? Also, if you have noticed, suddenly success is false. So something must have failed in the instantiate model step. This is a bug in Ruby.
Because puts return false.
Nil.
No, whatever.
I think it's nil. It's a bug in Ruby that has never been fixed because it would break thousands of applications. It's a funny side effect again.
So that's why you're gonna use P.
If I use P, it works, but it'll only go because P returns the argument, right? So the argument is not nil, it's not false, it's something, and something Ruby is true. And suddenly instantiate model and assign current user is run, and if I use. But you said something about true, what was that?
Return true.
You can also return true, really? So I do true here, and then what happens?
Yeah, it returns true.
And now all the three are run. This is amazing. But but it's still not successful. What happened? Well, maybe we have to return true again.
One.
Or one. Hey, it's just getting messy. I'm going to use true. So if I return true in all three steps, suddenly it is successful again. So I think you get the idea. Trailblazer runs instantiate model. If instantiates model returns true, it runs assign current user. So apparently the step method does respect the return value of the actual method. So false will cause something internally to not execute the following remaining pipeline. And this is, as I already said, because the return value of those steps matter. Yeah? True and false decide about are we going to execute the following or not. Basically, we can say this is a step, this is a step, this is a step. So look at this, remember it, because I'm going to redraw, but only quickly. So I said something about a pipeline and another pipeline. So the idea of the execution is you start with, what was it, model, instantiate model. Then if that is okay, you do assign current user. Then if that is okay, you validate. And so on and so on and so on. And in the end, result will be success. Yeah. If assign returns false or nil, which puts unfortunately did, this will be skipped because the execution will jump to the what we call the error handling pipeline, which is empty, but still will result in the result object saying this was a failure. Yeah? So this is something that is built into the operation that's incredibly helpful. That if one of the step fails, yeah, it's up to you to decide did it fail or not, because it's you who returned something from the step. But if it returns false or nil, false, see if you say Ruby, Trailblazer will jump to the error handling track and skip the remaining steps. And this is like, you think this is boring, but this will save you, this alone, and there's lots of more stuff coming, but this stuff saves you tons of code, because you don't have to say, if assign true, do this, else do that. Trailblazer does that automatically for you by giving you this mental image of error handling and success, like happy path and error handling. And the cool thing is, you can also add steps on the error handling path. For example, I could say, if assign doesn't work, log this. Yeah. So if model fails, it will go on log. If assign fails, it will go on log. If validate fails, nothing happens. You got the idea? Very simple. Actually, I'm going to use the editor and yes.
Nick, what do you do when a process stops being linear? When you know tree-based process, how it's depend on code?
If there's like a syntax error, you mean?
No. Process create model, yeah. Assign user. If user administrator, then this. If user usual user, then do that.
You want to know about the polymorphic aspect. Well, my son.
Exactly what tell me about.
Well, there's two things you can do. I mean, what usually people do is they will have ifs and else in those steps. I mean, it's not forbidden to use deciders in those steps, but if you have a completely different tree for admin and for normal user, I mean, the tree starts here, for example, then you would have two different operations, and they would share specific parts of that pipeline, and then would implement the rest in different implementations. So you have different classes. One is called common create, one is called common create admin, for example. So Trailblazer also has this polymorphic. We can actually like.
Is it inheritance hierarchy?
Yeah. So you can use inheritance. Yeah, you can inherit operations, and it will literally inherit this circuit, this pipeline, this railway, whatever you call it. And then you can adjust the inherited stuff, okay? But you can also compose things, and there's so many things we can do with it. But it's a very good question. I like that. So I can do that in a second. So the idea is happy path, failure path. Let's add something to log errors that happen in model and assign.
No. Maybe I'm asking another way. Yeah. Okay.
Because I wanted to, I can show how to do what you just asked. We can do that in the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is. Okay, but first let me explain the error handling. And I think we get pizza. So. To add something on the error handling track, you use fail. Fail could be log, for example. And you have to be careful about the order, yeah? So validate is after fail. So that means if validate fails, this will not hit log. So if you look at the diagram, you will understand why. Okay?
But if instantiate model fails, then we
try it. Just say false, and of course you have to implement log. So I have fail log, for validated after assign, and then I have some method. Oh, sorry, this is wrong. It should be like this. Which raises, I mean, it shouldn't raise something, obviously, but I just raised, okay, let's make it properly. Let's say it's Exceptions suck. Okay? Trailblazer tries to not make you use exceptions for control flow. And if I run this,
Sorry, awesome.
this one,
This is no. Sorry.
you have fail log. Unfortunately, fail is a reserved method in Ruby, but I don't care about this anymore.
Exception was failure,
Huh?
failure, maybe.
Fail is, I mean, it used to be fail. Oh, sorry. This is Trailblazer 2.0. I'm so sorry. It should be failure. Because in Trailblazer 2.0, which we are using right now, you had to do this, to make it look good. So too much work. So we decided, hey, just call every DSL method has 4 characters, and here we go. The other one is called pass, so we can talk about this also. Pass, blah blah. So they all line up neatly. So the correct code, sorry, is failure.
Method.
The method is exactly the same as everything else. I'm going to show you something really cool in a second. Something really cool. So, essentially, model fails, then oh my god, something happened, and nothing else is executed, because if you look at this diagram, you know why. So, this is Trailblazer 2.0. And I'm using Trailblazer 2.0 right now because I don't want you guys to pull stuff from GitHub. But in Trailblazer 2.1, I'm going to do a live demo. It's definitely going to break, but who cares? In Trailblazer 2.1, you can do the following thing. It's amazing. I love it so much. You can say, so don't do this right now. I'm just demonstrating something. So let's go to the operation. So this is the Trailblazer source. I'm just adding a new file. Don't do this. Actually, yeah. This is the most amazing feature I've ever written in the world. Kyiv.rb. This is just an. So let me test if it works. Because now I'm now in Trailblazer 2.1. Operation test Kyiv. Okay, this works. So what you can do now? I mean, I had to draw this diagram for you guys so you can understand the workflow. I mean, it's also visible from that, but you have to understand the dual pipelines in order to understand this DSL. What you can do in 2.1 is such an amazing feature. First of all, I have to add Trailblazer as a developer. Maybe I'm going to use my local version. You can see I'm super messy. Don't do this at home. It's definitely not going to work. It's not going to work. So I'm going to reference, shit, what am I doing? This is already here. Everything's already here. Okay, so in Trailblazer 2.1, I can now say, so let's say you write an operation, in a massive operation. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get what you do. I mean, I can look at it and say, okay, this is how it works. I can simply do something that is Trailblazer developer. I think it's client dot push, and I say, what's it called? Comment create. I'm gonna do a line break here, like in Ruby allows it. I think that's all I have to do in the new version. It's gonna break, but that's okay. So basically, what we give you is an integrated development gem. I expected 0. Sorry. Operation. This is like brand new stuff no one ever has seen in the world. Really, this is stuff only I know. But it's the coolest feature in the world. I think I also have to give it a name or something. And I also don't know why the missing key word. What is it saying? Name. Yeah, I also have to give a name. Yeah. So actually, the API is pretty straightforward. Also, Komma, I don't know what this output is, but it worked. Okay, so what happened now is that I used the Trailblazer developer gem to import this diagram into the editor. I mean, let me reload and hope everything works. Okay, this is retarded because I can't. I can't. Oh shit. How do I? Maybe if I decrease the font size, no, it doesn't work. So yeah, this is a problem I didn't think of.
You can put control plus minus. Control and minus.
Yeah, but I already did, but then it only zooms in the background. That's the feature, you know, that feature. But I can probably say decrease font size or something. Actually, this is such a great feature. I want to show it, but the problem is you can't delete yet, so I can't delete the items. How do we solve this problem? Where is? How can I say Firefox, please? Firefox, Chromium, please decrease the font size. Come on, guys, you're experts with this kind of internet thing. Doesn't mean it's already implemented. But in Trailblazer 2.1, we also have tracing. Yeah. So you can basically, I can show it because it also works. So a huge problem in 2.0 was that people run their operations. Yeah. This works. This fails. Goes here. Ends in failure. And I mean here it's pretty obvious where it failed. But lots of people asked for a way, how can we figure out which step failed? Yeah, how did the flow run in the operation? Here it's a bit simple, but some operations are really big, and you can also nest operations. We can check that out because that's interesting for your question with the polymorphic stuff. And then it gets really complicated to understand. Okay, where did they jump to the other track? And in Trailblazer 2.1. Now that I think about it, the tracing is actually the fact I wrote 2.1, and then it ended up in this shit. So you can do what the hell? I can't remember how the tracing works. I think you just say Trailblazer operation to. Ah, no, sorry. Okay, this is for the rendering. And you can trace any operation. Let's see if that works. Another cool feature of 2.1, yes, it works. So, I do not remember how to. Ah, shit. I think that was. This is the what the fuck method is a Ukrainian idea, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, okay, this looks pretty shitty, but you get the idea. Ah, because I'm using P and not puts, I'm stupid. So you can see that, I mean, this is the simplest tracing that you can see. It starts, it goes to instantiate model, it goes to log, and then it goes to end failure. So this is basic tracing in 2.1. And all I do is, instead of using call, I say trace. Yeah, exact same API, and then I get back the result object, and the result object with the what the fuck method, which is a Ukrainian idea, renders the tracing in a really simple thing. But in the tracing, in advanced tracing, you can also see what kind of variables were active in the process and everything. And how variables change. I mean, we didn't even discuss variables yet, but tracing also takes care of that. So it's amazing to understand, okay, it started, instantiate, something went wrong, it instantiate, it went to log, to understand what the path of the execution was. Another feature that is unbeatable, you will never have that in Ruby, because Ruby, if something fails, you have to climb up the stack trace and look, okay, this and this and this. And in the coming version of the editor, this will be visible here. So you will see red, 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 red. So you see, okay, this is the path of my operation. And then you can also zoom in and check the variables and stuff in every step and see why it failed, for example. And this is advanced. I mean, I wish this was already implemented. It's not that hard. It's more work in the front end. My front end guy, is this a video? My front end guy is fantastic, but I have to pay him. And this is where open source starts to get expensive. And he's fantastic. He's programming all this editor, and he's implementing the editor in a new library, and everything. It's going to be great. But it's going to take some months. When we have tracing in a visual environment, and when we have, because you can also use tracing when you debug something. Yeah? When an exception is raised in Ruby right now, it says this exception came from stack trace, and then you have 80 lines of code. We overwrite some tiny parts in Ruby, and suddenly you don't have a stack trace anymore. You have a visual diagram that shows you how where the exception comes from, and what the environment looks like in that step, in that step, in that step. And that is, in my opinion, taking software development in Ruby to a completely new level, because you don't think in like, oh, stacks and blah, and this method and that method. You think in like visual diagrams, and you don't have to think in them because they actually exist in the editor. So debugging and tracing will also be coupled to the editor and make it super simple to see what happened. And another thing is that you can also use, there's no API for this yet, so I can't show it, but you can also ask the result object in a programmatical way, what was your path, and then have different reactions on the result object. For example, in the controller can run the operation and then say, okay, if you failed in this step, show non-authorized. If you failed in that step, show invalid data to the form, or something like that. So you can interpret the way the operation will run from the outside without having to know the internals. Okay, so this was tracing, and the amazing editor. I'm still so proud of this work, but I have to look at this again. And there was a question, can we have more than one law and one failure? Of course we can. You could have a fail step after every log again. Yeah, I can. What's that? Failure. Not fail, but failure. Yeah, no, because I'm in 2.1. Okay, you write failure, and please allow me to render this.
No.
Failure.
Damn it. Okay. Shit. I do it. Illegal node. Okay. Log again. Log. Yeah, so you have to say log me or something. Oh. Something went wrong. So, developer. Who changed my code without telling me? I'm exporting, there's an error. Name or a common create undefined class. What the hell?
Should define those methods.
You mentioned method in failure. What does it
Define them.
Oh, that should be fine for the rendering because it doesn't run. Sorry, I know why. Because we ran the operation and then it matters. Because only for rendering you don't even need to run the operation. operation. This is some declarative process. So if I go to the editor,
So you like run all the
different possibilities, you could do that. You could also do that. And
I mean to draw it. You run all the
no. To draw. Yeah, this always happens, but you can do something like this and then reload. Exactly, here we go. Come on, this is an amazing feature. This is like, so log again, log me, please log. So, I mean, even if you, I mean, I could show this to my mother, and she would understand how this operation works. Because it's like boxes and arrows, and if you don't understand boxes and arrows, choose. And now if someone says, hey, I ran your operation, like in your company, you work with a different department. They say, hey, I ran your operation, and it always, I don't know, it always prints please at some point when validate fails. Why is that? And you render this diagram or tell them, go to this link, they will see validate please. Oh, that's why it prints please. You don't have to explain it, it's there. Yeah? And this also helps to, I mean, honestly, I wrote this feature to see if, because in Trailblazer 2.1 I completely rewrote the way this kind of stuff is maintained internally in the core code, okay? And I had to make sure, I wrote lots of tests, additional tests to 2.0 to make sure the wiring and everything is correct, but then sometimes when there was a bug, I needed to see, I wanted to see a diagram like this to see why there is a bug. And then I wrote and I came up with the idea, hey, let's render that stuff. And then it turned out to be a really helpful feature. So if sometimes you don't understand your own code, you render it, here we go. I mean, you can see there's also different, like this is an additional standard feature of Trailblazer that you have a fail fast and a pass fast path, and you can, for example, jump from assign current user directly to this path. And actually, why am I talking if I can just show it? So for example, if let's say assign current user, if assign current user had some special behavior and if some specific condition is okay, we can skip the rest, but in a successful way. You can say pass fast true. So this is standard DSL. Let's render and hope it works. Now you have to reload the page, and then you have to open the class, and then you have to reload. You can see that assign current user now has an edge to end pass fast. Yeah. So this is how you add. There's a default way to add edges. I mean, you can also connect this to that and that to here and that to here. The new API also supports this kind of stuff, and you can also draw it and then just export it if you want. But yeah, so the two standard tracks, the additional tracks, the pass fast and end fast, we call them fast track, were a result, and you can see there's no edge to validate now, because if this passes, it goes here and there's no way we can go to validate. Those two were a result of 2.0 was too limited. We only had two tracks, step, 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 fail, 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 step. And people wanted to do more than that. They wanted to, have complicated wirings. And one of the first attempts to fix that in 2.0 was to add those two new tracks, because we didn't have the mechanics to do more than that. We only had the linearity of the, like dry transaction has the same problem. Like you can't go back and stuff because it's all linear. And so I added those tracks, or actually someone else added them. And after one day, people were like, this is a great feature, I use it all the time now, but how can I, and then, how can I go from here to here, and then there, and then there, and I'm like, shit, man, this is not, the API is not sufficient anymore, we have to change it. And then it took me 5 months to change everything, but that's fine.
This is what I'm asking. This is what I'm asking.
I thought you wanted to know how to do polygon.
No. I asked about this complexity, of this diagram complexity. This is main feature.
You mean you mean complexity in terms of this specific track, or complexity in terms of
you know, you just add one track, and you can build on it. You can build full tree-based model. You know,
it doesn't have to be a tree. It can be some.
No. I think it's a well-known problem. You know, I thought about it many years.
Okay, so you mean the problem can be, so this is a tree in the end of the day?
I think you finally came to the tree-based model.
In
structure, in business process structure, I think it will be a tree-based model.
So the graph can be mathematically converted into
tree-based.
It's not in polyforms.
That was my thought in 2.0 when people ask me for stuff like that.
No, this is another level. You know, it will be a 3D model. You know, when you build it.
Yeah, but I thought a tree is fine, and then I realized that if you want to do the 3D tree like this, you have to have two nodes in the tree that are the same, that represent the same step and this kind of stuff. So I decided, and I remember exactly when I decided that. It was a beautiful sunny day in winter, that I need to change the tree, the linearity thing. I need to rewrite this to some real circuit. You know, circuits can go anywhere and stuff like that. So like electrical engineering, basically. I never studied electrical engineering, but this, here we go. Okay. So this is a little bit unfair because I am using 2.1 and you are using 2.0, but that's life. Okay, let's go back to 2.0. But I hope I kind of excited you to check out 2.1 as soon as it is stable. It is actually stable, but I learned one thing after 13 years of open source: never release often and never release early, because it sucks. Because people will start using your stuff. Next day you decide, oh, actually failure should be called fail because I think it's great. You push it and then suddenly people write you broke our production code, you fucking idiot. I thought you'd do semantical versioning. I never said I'd do semantical versioning. Okay, so I mean, I'm pretty glad that we have this editor now, because this starts to be a bit like complex to visualize mentally. This is why I'm going to simplify it again. I'm in the wrong file anyway. Where am I? Here we go. So this was the original thing we were talking about. Okay, so the point of the operation becomes kind of clear, right? It's all about flow control. Yeah, I mean, Trailblazer has shitloads of more features for validations and all this kind of stuff. This is all additional layers and different gems, but the key point of Trailblazer is we take over your flow control, because this code you write for flow control is unnecessary and it's error prone. You have to test it, and you have redundancy, and you have lots of code to make sure that you're in this specific state or in this specific log step. And this is just unnecessary code, yeah? So we kind of abstract this kind of stuff, this behavior, these mechanics in a very simple DSL or in the editor. So you worry about implementation, not about flow control. And I like that, because I hate flow control code. So that's the structural aspect of an operation, yeah, the tracks and everything in there. I mean, always remember this beautiful diagram, and when you see diagrams like this, always think of me. It's great because when someone thinks of you positively, you can hear a ringing in your left ear. Did you know that? It's a saying in my country. And in the right ear means someone is talking bad about you. Okay, so this is the structural aspect. Now, there's something else in Trailblazer which is pretty important to understand, and that's basically the second thing I want to show. is how do we treat state? Yeah, how do we transport information from step to step? How do we expose information to the outer world? Because I mean, you run an operation, it does something, but you want to know what happened on the outside as a caller. Yeah. So, for example, in the controller, I want to know, was it successful? Then redirect to the new route. Or did something happen? Then what happened? Or you want to say something like, was it successful? Then redirect to, and then here comes the problem. You say comments path, so this is Rails, but this could be any framework, comments path, and then blah 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 ID. Yeah, because we created a comment, we want to redirect to the new path. How do we actually access? I mean, how do we know what we created? And this is all topic for the state handling in Trailblazer. Yeah, so I'm gonna comment this. So in Trailblazer, and I'm talking about this tomorrow again. Actually, you can skip the last talk tomorrow because you already know everything. So in Trailblazer 1, where we didn't have this step stuff, we just had this big process. We just had this big process method, and we used instance variables and local variables and passed them around and everything. And it was better than having everything happening in the controller, but it still sucked. So in Trailblazer 2, this is different again. We have something called the context object. It's now called, but we still call it options. Context and options is the same. And if you want to transport information to another step, to the outer world, you write to this object. So there's only one mutable object in a Trailblazer operation, in a way. So for example, I can say model, let's say I would create, let's say I'm faking some stuff. Comments have bodies, right? Let's say text. Yo. So I'm creating a model. Let's do it in 2 steps. And then, so if I leave it like this, no one else in this operation will know about the model. I mean, obviously, like if I say puts model here, I also need to return true here, otherwise we will not come into this step. So I'm assigning local variable model here, and I'm reusing it here. I mean, this is going to break, of course. Yeah. So just to show you that there's no magic involved. Like it'll say undefined local variable